Anthony Melcuri, I think there's going to be a lot of hip hooray and ballyhoo today on today's show.
I got nothing. I was about to say something. I got nothing.
All right.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Hey, everybody. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. We've got, of course, right over there, the incredible Anthony Melcuri. Anthony, so great to see you. I, of course, am Glenn Hausman. Anthony.
Anybody ever tell you you're the lullaby of Broadway?
I know. Honestly, every time I hear that song, I cannot help but think of the Milford Plaza Hotel from back in the day.
Listen, it's our next guest will probably know very well that commercial that we talk of, and probably somehow had something to do with it.
Somehow, but we'll see. We'll get to that.
Who are you? So do a one shot. Show everybody where you are.
All right, here we are. Today I am not. Oh, sorry, Dave. Today I am not on Broadway. Take a look at that. Oh, beautiful show, Chicago. A show that I saw 20-something years ago, Anthony. I think it's been around for such a long time. Absolutely love that show. I absolutely love Broadway, so I'm excited for that. But first, Anthony, you know what else I'm excited about? I'm excited that our viewers are getting into the whole idea of bestbuy.com/hospitality, because Best Buy Business is helping hoteliers just like you out there save money. They're going to even take out your old TVs, put in new TVs. That Geek Squad is going to help you do that. Be sure to check them out at bestbuy.com/hospitality, bestbuy.com/hospitality. Also, Anthony, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people are saying, Glenn, what's going on with Ecotech? Are you actually using those trash cans? I'm happy to say I am. Look, it's paper. I'm using it. As soon as the recycling people come, that one's going out. I'm replacing it. That's why I like Ecotech. Anthony, I know you're using them in your home.
I'm using them all the time. I actually put 3 more around my house. So, yes, I'm using them. So how are you, my friend? Why are you on Broadway?
Good. Hold on one sec. Be sure to check them out at eco-techwaste.com. Eco-techwaste.com. I don't want our audio listeners to not have the opportunity to check them out. I'm doing great, but I did want to talk to you about one story before we get into our show, which is going to be amazing today. This shocked me. This surprised me. Let's see how upset you are by this particular news. But the CEO of the Great Canadian Gaming Corporation, they own 17 or so gaming properties up in the Great White North over there. He was forced to resign. Why? Because him and his wife violated the Yukon Civil Emergency Measures Act. They went ahead, broke quarantine, went up to the Yukon Territory in the community of Beaver Creek, claimed they were new employees at an area motel, and then got vaccinated.
So you want to know my opinion?
Oh, well, yeah.
That's ridiculous. And they should be whatever happened to them should happen to them.
Out. Lost his job.
He should lose his job. I mean, you're taking that potentially from someone that could save their life, and that's fragile and is in the front lines. And so, yeah, I mean, there's another clinic somewhere. I don't know exactly where it was, but I read that they basically lost the right to vaccinate anybody because they were basically vaccinating people that worked in the school system. They weren't vaccinating teachers, but they were vaccinating administrators, and they're not supposed to. And the person said, well, I really feel that those people should get vaccinated. Okay, I really feel I should get vaccinated. But if we don't have rules, then how do we get this done? We have to have rules, and we have to stick by the rules.
Yes, we absolutely do. We have a society here, people. We all got to play with it. You know, it's funny you should say that, because like my wife and my mom are trying to encourage me to try to get ahead of the line and stuff like that, just so we could all be safe. And I'm like, I can't.
No, you can't do it.
Yeah.
There's some things that are not negotiable, and that's a not negotiable. Somebody could say, Anthony, I'll give it to you. No one will ever know, and I'll give you $50,000 to take it. No, the answer is because it's just like going into a store without a mask. Mm-hmm. You don't know the damage you're doing by taking somebody else's vaccine.
Right. You know, you say that that's not negotiable. You know what? But something is negotiable. That's your property taxes, right? 2020 was hard on your revenues. Go ahead and check out Bright Support. They can help you. Book a 30-minute consultation with brightsupport.net/hotels. Call them at 833-411-2233. Tell them No Vacancy sent you. See about lowering those property taxes Folks are saving 10, 20% by doing it. You like how I slipped that one in?
I love how you did that. I was gonna say, oh, did you hear what's happening with that stock game? What is it called?
Oh, my GameStop.
GameStop.
How awesome is that?
Well, it's not. It's a pump and dump. It's not. Awesome.
No, it's great. It's not a pump and dump, in my opinion. What happened is all of those wealthy banker types, the ones that have been manipulating Wall Street for years, got their comeuppance. Why? Because they shorted the stock at like 124%, a ridiculous number. I would say borderline unethical for them to do that. A Reddit user found it out, realized that they could probably make money, shared that information that was all publicly available, and all of these people started making investments and buying it and drove the stock up and screwed the big Wall Street.
Yeah, but how about the people that bought it at that stock that now the stock this morning is $150 and was 349 yesterday?
Well, that's your decision to purchase those stocks. I don't have any pity for people that are doing
it.
But
I personally don't think that should be legal because that's manipulation. And
tell that to the big Wall Street bankers that have been doing it for decades and screwing.
What they're doing, and I don't really understand the short business as well as I probably should, but that's just a calculated risk on their part.
Yeah, they said they claimed that the stock was going to go down, so they put all of their money into shorting the stock.
So what's wrong with that? If you're taking an educating guess that the stock is going to go down, which that's not a hard guess to take, it's a retail game, and most games are now bought online.
Right.
So it's like shorting Blockbuster a year before it went out of business. That's not a hard thing to do. Do you know what I'm saying?
No.
So I don't know. I have a problem because I know some people that bought the stock yesterday. What are you buying the stock for? You crazy?
Yeah, that was people who got in a little too late. I think they made a mistake speculating on it when it had been driven up all the way.
Well, it's valued there's no value to the company. It's a retail. It sells games, and everybody buys everything online. So the company is eventually going to go out of business.
I love that it's really a lesson for people to understand that cite the stock market as being relatively people that keep saying that the stock market is the health of the economy. I think it's very disassociated from the actual economy. Look at, that report from the AHLA came out that we've lost 10 years worth of employment gains in the hospitality industry. That's the real economy, not paper, not us bidding up prices on stocks, not us shorting stocks. So I think this is a good lesson for American society to learn right about now with what's going on. Anthony, you're muted. You muted yourself. You're saying
I want to take a stroll on Broadway.
All right, let's do it. We got Mr. Charlie Flateman coming on the show now. Charlie, he's really awesome because not only is the EVP of Business Development at the Shubert Organization, which owns a ton of theaters in Broadway and is really involved in there, he's also Chairman of the Board of NYC and Company, one of the biggest DMOs in the entire country. Charlie, welcome so much to the show. I'm sorry I have to start out this way, but being that you love musicals and stuff right now, when you're depressed, do people ever come to you and sing that song from Willy Wonka, "Cheer Up, Charlie"?
Not twice. Maybe. But thank you for that. I'm really happy that you are positioned in front of the Ambassador Theater where Chicago is playing, which is one of our shows, been around a long time. And,
how long?
Pays my salaries.
I think I went 20 something years ago. It just feels like it's always been there.
You did, and it has always been there. And it's a wonderful show. And one of these days, in the not too distant future, we're going to get ourselves back there.
Well, now Chicago is there forever, unlike Cats that bragged that they'd be there now and forever. I don't see it on Broadway.
Well, they did come back
for
a short run. That's why you called it Now and Forever Again.
I love it.
But I'll tell you something, Charlie. One of the reasons you've been successful, and I want to go through your background, is because what he just did with that song, and then you said they don't do it twice. It's like you are you and I had just met, but we had like an hour conversation last week because our friend Mike Ferrantino, a mutual friend that I work with at the Plaza Hotel, put us together. And I said to you at the end of that conversation, were we best friends before we got on this phone call? Because I feel like you're my best friend now. And I love that fact that you're this sweet, great guy, but you haven't been in this business by suffering fools. Not that I'm calling my friend here a fool, but that you handle stuff. And that's what I love about your career. I mean, go through your career a little bit. I mean, I know you were born in Brooklyn. You grew up in Long Island, I think you said, right?
New Jersey.
But you have they call you Mr. New York for a reason. I mean, you have a huge gig at Shubert. You're the chairman of the board of NYC and Co. You were in Gray Line. You were then you had a ticket business. It's just like you're an amazing. You have an amazing career. So go through your career a little bit.
Yeah, I think if you do enough things, you can just tell people you're working on the other project while you're doing it. So it keeps you out of a real career.
Yeah, I love it.
In any case, yeah, it's been a long ride. I actually started as a bus dispatcher at the Port Authority. So I've been working and living around Times Square for my whole life. And coming out of the bus business, we got into sightseeing and we started the double-decker bus operation in New York City, which grew and grew and grew. Sightseeing business was a really crazy Damon Runyon-esque business back in the day. It was a lot of fun for a kid in his 20s. Right. We used to collect cash from the hotel lobby desks and walk around with the cash in our socks so we wouldn't get mugged. You have to remember this was the late 70s and early 80s. And
Times Square was
a different place
back then. Yeah. It was all porn stores and fake ID places for those of people who don't know.
It was a different world. And
so how do you get like before double-decker buses? Like how did you get the approval to have a double-decker bus in New York? Because I remember we went like all of a sudden we started seeing double-decker buses. I don't remember seeing it when I was really young. So how'd that happen?
The double-decker bus story was interesting. There was a competitor. Gray Line was the legacy company. So we always were very official and very buttoned up. And a competitor called New York Apple Tours showed up. And actually, I complained. And I said, how is this even legal? And there weren't any regulations that were defined about how those buses were supposed to operate in the city. So we actually protested. We had those cute trolleys. You may remember those that sort of looked like old timey things, which was really a dumb idea in retrospect because you can't get anything less New York than an old timey trolley. But right. That's what they manufactured and we bought them and we tried to compete for a little while. And then as there were regulations that started to become formalized, then we jumped into the business. And because we had a name that went back 50, 75 years in sightseeing, sort of at the dawn of when sightseeing became a business, then we were able to really establish a footprint in the city, and it was a great time. There are so many wonderful times. It's hard to remember sometimes how many there are, and also that we sort of careened our way through a life in New York City sightseeing and tourism that was hard work, but it was a blast. It continues to be that way. In every element of my career, it's always been lots of fun. And I think hospitality and tourism and the theater, I can't imagine architecting a better career for anybody. Like it's so I feel very blessed.
That's great. Anthony?
What's the one thing that you rely on that you said it's fun? And like, even when I was talking to you, you have this incredible business savvy, but you're also you seem like just a really, like, I want to buy a drink and hang out with you, buy you a drink and hang out with you. Like, what has it been that has kept you through your success? Like, what's the one thing in your DNA that's made you successful?
I think if there's one thing, it's probably humility at the end of the day. Everybody, I try to learn from everybody else, and I understand that the people, everybody says that, but the truth is the people who work with me, my work colleagues, they are the subject matter experts at what they're the expert. I don't pretend to be the expert in what they know. They know what they're talking about, and I rely on them. So when I go through my day, I spend very little time saying, do this, do that, do this. I spend a lot of time saying, oh, that's interesting. What do you think we should do here? What should we do there? And try to synthesize that and make conversations among all these different groups. Usually the hardest thing in business and in life is just getting people to communicate. So I think if I could do that, then I've done my job.
I think that's perfectly said. I'm so excited to have you on the show. And as I said to Glenn yesterday, one of the things I'm excited about is I truly believe when people say, well, New York goes the way of Broadway. No. The country goes the way of Broadway. If Broadway is packed and everything's great and the restaurants are packed and the Ubers and the limos and the carriage rides are all kind of on Broadway, the world's probably in pretty good shape, or the country's economically in pretty good shape because, as we know, it's not cheap to come to New York, stay in New York and buy those tickets and have dinner. So this has been a question I've been dying to ask somebody for a year. Where are we, Charlie?
I'm not on Broadway right now, so
right. See, Glenn's starting.
Where are we?
Where are we? We are still in the woods, but I think we are starting to see. We're starting to see sort of clear sky on the other side, and like every business, that means that it requires a lot of planning. So I'm feeling a level of energy now that we were not feeling 2 months ago about where we were at, even though we are in a second wave, the pandemic is still raging around the country. And it's always important to be mindful of the incredible devastation that this continues to bring us. At the same time, we can't be frozen by that. We have to look forward and really think about when these businesses can start up. When can Broadway actually safely start to re-engage? When can we let people back in our theaters? When can we have actors and stagehands and all the people who support theater, when can they start to get back to work? Because you don't snap your fingers one day in whether that's going to be in September or a little bit before. It's not like you snap your fingers and you make this machine go. Everybody will have to be starting up several months in advance. So the planning is happening now. And I feel optimistic while, of course, cautious about where we're at, making sure that our safety protocols are all in place, not just for when audiences return, but with all the people who work on Broadway and work around Broadway, wherever they are.
Yeah. And so you said something that made me really happy. And I'll be honest with you, give me a little pep in my step. You said potentially there may be a couple of shows this summer. Do you, where are we? You think that's
we have to be very cautious. People ask me this all the time. For the first thing is like, what's the day that Broadway is going to open? And
how do you know that? Right.
And it's impossible to know. It's still premature. And I caution us about thinking that there will be one day when we will flip on all the lights and every show starts up.
You feel it's more likely one or two shows will start in earnest, prove that it's viable, and then move forward?
Yeah. My sense of it is it's easy to look forward and harder to look day by day. So with 100% certainty, I shouldn't say that. With a lot of certainty, I could say that the spring of 22, we will have our theaters fully booked. Right. I think by the fall of 21, we'll have a number of our theaters booked. So we will have a real season in the fall of 21.
22. Oh, 21.
21, this fall coming up. I think that will happen. Whether one or two or a couple more shows can start up before that remains to be seen. And I think that's the part where we're going to see what the safety protocols are. We're going to see, of course, how rapidly the vaccine is distributed around the country and actually gets into people's arms. And if we have enough herd immunity by the first 6 months of the year, then I think we'll start to feel better about gathering in theater where you are going to be shoulder to shoulder with 1,000 people. So we've got to feel really good about our health situation at that point.
Yeah, and you know what, and you know, it's so great to have someone like you, not only in charge of where you are in Shubert, but also on NYC and Co. because you have so much experience. Because you know better than anybody, you got one shot at this. You can't get it wrong. you can't open and close. That is, I think that would be a death blow. It's better if it takes longer, but we got to get it right. So what is it like? Because everybody's asking you, when's Broadway coming back? You know, we know the hotel industry in New York City's got hit harder than most hotel cities, for lack of a better term. So you're trying to work on the Broadway part, but also you're the chairman of NYC and Company. So when people say to you, New York's never coming back, what do you say to them?
Well, I don't know if this is if you're allowed to curse on this show, but I say
yeah.
I say that's
to
total
curse,
bullshit. That's ridiculous. Of course, New York is coming back. I think New York is going to come back in blazing style, actually. And there's a bunch, but even before it comes back, I think we're starting to feel some things happen now. At NYC and Company right now, we pivoted our restaurant week, which has been it's a very big critical segment, unbelievably devastated, as everybody knows, and everything in leisure and tourism and hospitality was. But so the restaurants have been suffering to an incredible extent. This year, we created Restaurant Week to Go at NYC and Company. Oh. And we got some really great restaurants and a very wide array of restaurants to participate.
I thought you were going to say some really great ones and a couple of really horrible ones too.
Yeah, well, you know, there might be in there, but I haven't tried them yet. I hope. There's 570 restaurants are participating right now in Restaurant Week to Go. And MasterCard is a sponsor, so people get a $10 credit when they order Restaurant Week to Go for a $21.20 meal, which you can get from really fancy restaurants, the Danny Meyer restaurants, and Andrew Carmelini, and all kinds of fancy chefs jumped in this year. It's sort of a wonderful way that the city comes together.
And is it going on right now, or
it is going on right this second? So
for how long?
It's going on for 2 weeks, and then we'll see about extending it. So
I think they're going to extend it. There's no doubt about that. All right, January 25th through 31st, it will be extended, in my opinion, because
in my opinion too.
So you're going to find out it's so successful and such an important psychological boost, I think, to folks within the restaurant community. We all need that right about now, right, Charlie?
Yeah. Yeah, and what we're hearing from the restaurant guys is like, this is a real shot in the arm for us. Obviously, the restaurant guys want to be serving people in a restaurant, So nobody pretends that this is as good as the actual restaurant business, but we do know that it's very necessary. It keeps a lot of chef and staff working, and that's important. So that's sort of a critical step to our New York City mojo. I think that's kind of the way I think of it. And as we go forward, we're going to see the more museums open up with more capacity. The museums are open now, but they will start to expand, and I think we will start to feel better.
Yeah.
When Broadway opens, then the city is fully open, and I think everybody understands that as the city goes, so goes Broadway. And as Broadway goes, so goes the city. And Anthony, as you said, not just the city, but it also impacts the whole region in New York State. It impacts the Acela corridor as coming from Washington up to Boston. And Broadway is, we think of it, especially because we're New Yorkers and we're nobody is more impressed with themselves than New Yorkers. So we love ourselves. But Broadway is around the country. And the size of the Broadway national business, touring productions, is about the same size as Broadway here in New York. So these are giant businesses all over America and all over the world. It's a big shadow.
You know, it's so funny you said, as New Yorkers, we love ourselves. And as you said it, I said to myself, you're right, I do. I really love being a New Yorker.
Yes.
But let me ask you, one of the things they say, we're not building any more land. And, in Broadway, we're not building any more Broadway theaters. Are we building any more Broadway theaters? Are we thinking about bigger stadiums, bigger areas? What are we thinking about?
Yeah. It's a very interesting thing about Broadway. We do build theaters occasionally, but a lot of things have to come together. It's sort of kismet. There's not a lot of real estate available.
Right.
Obviously, it's in Times Square or elsewhere, and I think we don't want to change the essence of Broadway, which are the buildings are actually very small. So when you could see somebody like Hugh Jackman coming into the Music Man in a theater that's actually not very big, this, yes, of course, Hugh Jackman in the Music Man could fill Madison Square Garden, could fill arenas all over the place. But the thing that you get on Broadway is that you get an intimacy that is unrivaled and is actually what makes the experience. And we're really mindful to make sure that we don't mess up the secret sauce that is the Broadway experience.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly said. And Glenn, before you ask your question, Charlie, do you want to go down the rabbit hole of air rights?
Air rights are an interesting part of New York City's history in what made it so. And I could do it. It's really a very simple story because I think it's great public policy that has been in place for quite some time. But these theaters, if you were a real estate developer, they are not the highest and best use of this incredibly valuable land. You would say the most valuable land in the world, potentially, in the middle of Times Square. So in order to preserve these theaters in perpetuity as these historic buildings that they are, and these gems of our culture, then there needed to be an economic reason for that to make that work. And the reason that made that work was air rights, that you could actually take some of the locked up value that these theaters represent and turn them into commercial, a different type of commercial development. So air rights definitely have one of those things that for 40, 50 years have made Broadway what it is.
So basically, to give an example, like we were developing a hotel in Times Square and we needed more air rights. Basically, the more air rights you have, the more rooms you can make, and that becomes the deal. So you go to a theater, and Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, you go to a theater and you go, hey, that space above you, you're not going to develop it, and you have the right to develop it. Can I buy those air rights from you? And then I'm going to use those air rights and use them in my hotel. So basically, all you're buying is space above a Broadway theater that you're buying really just air, and you're not buying it for $5. You're buying it for tens of millions of dollars, right?
Yes, that is the basic game plan, and it's been in place for a very, very long time, and I think it's part of the thing that makes the urban landscape what it is. This would look very different if we didn't have this type of zoning policy that actually provides some sanity and creates these engines of the economy.
If you look at the Intercontinental on what is it, 9th Avenue and 43rd,
44th.
Right, the bustle, the Intercontinental Tower is on the avenue. But the bustle behind it, which has got rooms too, which is maybe 7 or 8 floors, you're not allowed to build because of zoning. You're not allowed to build on that block any higher than that. So the front of the building, you can build to 40 stories. But behind the building, because you're on that block of 43rd Street or 44th Street, you can only build. And like you said, it makes all the difference. Now, my other question is, are there any more air rights for Broadway theaters to sell? Or did they sell them all already?
I think there's still some left. We'll go scraping around the basement, see what we have.
Another great option that everybody has is take a look at the Marriott Marquis. They've got a Broadway theater in that building, right? When they built the whole new complex 20 years ago up in Columbus Circle, they put theaters in there, for example. So there's still opportunities to create new theaters within larger organization, within larger multi-purpose structures, should there not be any air rights available as well. But Charlie, people are, I think people are curious as to a little bit more about the Shubert Organization. I know you have something like 18 Broadway, off-Broadway theaters, give or take 1 or 2 of them. What are some of the theaters? What are some of the shows that you were having in them? What are some of the names other than Chicago that people might be familiar with?
Oh, well, we have a lot of the big legacy names that I think you know. There's Phantom of the Opera has been in one of our theaters for a very long time. Dear Evan Hansen, is a show that I absolutely love. We have West Side Story was up at the Broadway theater, so we pretty much cover the neighborhood. We're very excited. We have new shows coming in that are already planning on booking for the fall. There's a new show called Thoughts of a Colored Man that is that we're excited for, that will be coming in this fall on 45th Street. So I'm looking forward to when we get that energy. There's really nothing like one of my favorite moments in theater is when all the shows break and I'm standing there on 45th Street and you see thousands of people swarming out of these buildings and they're getting autographs and they're signing and things like that. And there's a big wide range of shows all across Broadway and at the Shubert theaters and also at our colleagues.
There's nothing like when it breaks and everybody's standing there. And I was telling you, I had my daughter's good friend, Andrew Feldman, was the star of Evan Hansen. And I went to the last show. And I remember watching this kid who I've seen, grow up at the theater. And his dream is always obviously to be on Broadway. And to see him go down, and he was so humble and so kind to make sure every single person got an autograph, and every young girl that wanted to take a picture with him or shake his hand there's nothing like it. There's there's very few times in my career that I can really stop and say it took my breath away. And to see a kid from this area grow up in this area, star on Broadway, and then see how people react to him, it was just one of those moments that was just, you can only get it on Broadway.
Well, and this is a real New York thing. It's back to one of the things that we like about New York is you actually see the actors.
That's right.
In the subway minding their own business. Nobody's bothering these people. These are famous people. If they were in LA, they'd be being swarmed in at the restaurant. People would, they're always recognizable. Here in New York, it's just like another guy with his lunchbox and going to work.
100%. And I love that because you walk down, because I ran the Algonquin on 44th Street. So you would see them constantly every single day. And, walking down the block with my daughter, it's funny because I don't know 90% of them. I know the stars. I don't know. And even the stars I barely know. She knows every single human being. It's fascinating. She goes, Dad, you know who that is? I'm like, so and so and so and so and so and so. I was like, I have no idea. And that's what's great about being in New York. Even I've had a TV show for so long, and people say to me, when you're in New York, people must bother you. I said, it's the one city no one gives a crap. If I was having a heart attack on the subway and my biggest fan was on the subway at 9:00 seeing me have a heart attack, they'd be like, oh, Anthony, really? You have to have a heart attack now? We got to get to work.
Right. It's absolutely true. And that's why one of my favorite perches is actually at Sardi's on 44th Street, which is where my office is. Sadly, I'm not there today. I'm usually in the office every week. I'm in the office for 3 days a week, but we had one of our colleagues tested positive. So out of an abundance of caution, we decided to close the office just for this week. So I will be back in the city next week. But normally in theater season, the second floor bar at Sardi's and the windows that overlook all that action gives you that exact experience. And the actors are there before the show, after the show. I hope they're not there during the show. But it's a wonderful thing that happens in New York, and the alchemy of all those people.
Right. Charlie, Sardi's is so part of the Broadway scene. Do you happen to have a caricature of yourself in Sardi's?
Not me.
Not yet.
The walls are only so big, so we have to build something else.
There it is.
That's excellent. So thinking about going back to NYC and Company and stuff, and how you're all related with Broadway and how it all comes together. What is the plan to try to let people know that they should come to New York at some point to get tourism going again? Have you started to think about that? I mean, meetings and events are going to be soft, I believe, for a while. So you really need to focus on those leisure travelers if we want to get back to the 65 million visitors we had just a couple of years ago?
Yeah. We actually started our tourism recovery coalition at NYC and Company. It's called All In NYC. You may have seen some of that around. We began this effort, believe it or not, back in March of last year. So when
you thought you were going to be closed for 6 weeks or whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, we knew at NYC and Company. I think when the virus was in China, we said, "Oh, China's an important market for New York City." China was sent over 1 million visitors to New York in 2019. So we said, "Well, this is an important market. This is going to hurt." And then, of course, as it spread, we knew. I think the quote was, "This is going to be the mother of all recovery efforts we're going to need here." So we pulled together a coalition that started working on it. We created the All In campaign. The All In campaign, initially, the plan was back then that we wanted to speak to New Yorkers. So we were promoting New York to New Yorkers really during the heart of the worst times in the city back in May and June of last year. We are looking at these sort of long lead time issues. I think the campaigns that will happen are for leisure travel primarily. I think leisure is where we see our recovery beginning. And we're going to take this core of New Yorkers. First is about New York people start time to wake up, the sun is rising, time to start re-engaging with the city. And then we're going to go and start promoting to the drive market. And that 100-mile radius of New York, get people back to taking day trips, Broadway when it opens, come in, go to a museum, go to lunch, do all that stuff with your family. A lot of people are going to want to visit their friends and relatives. So that VFR market is going to be really important. It's one of the places that we intend to start, actually, is to have people encourage their relatives to meet them in the city, come back, meet us here and celebrate an event, or just come and re-engage from that drive market. And then from there, we're going to go and expand back to working with our international offices and just sort of do the heavy lifting. But I think you're right that the meeting and convention business will be a little tougher to bring back.
Right. Anthony?
I was just going to say it's amazing. Some things just are meant to be. And I couldn't think of a better person to be in the seat that you sit in, both seats. And I mean that sincerely. I'm not looking to blow smoke.
That's not a fact.
I'll take it.
Like we need an adult in the room, right? We need somebody that has seen it, bought it, invented it, understand it. Don't get overly excited. You know, it's blocking tackle, it's X's and O's. It's let's stay to what we're good at. Let's not get over our skis. And just what you're saying, even in March when you were saying, hey, we need to really think about the recovery, it's just refreshing to see that, you know, we're in good shape. Like you give me faith that New York City's in good shape.
I think one of the things to remember is we've had a lot of conversation about what work will look like. Are they going to be gathering in offices? Are they going to be having meetings and conventions in the way that they used to? Put all of that aside for a second. Even if people are not gathering in offices 5 days a week, the place where businesses around the world are going to want to gather their staff, they're going to pull their teams together, is going to be in a world-class city. You're not a big company like Google or Microsoft, when they have a meeting of their marketing people, which could be thousands and thousands of people, it's hard to imagine that they're going to want to pull people from around the world and gather in a small Midwestern city.
Right.
I don't want to disparage any small Midwestern cities.
Sedalia, Missouri.
Yeah, exactly. But the place that they will gather, where are they going to gather, is they're going to gather in a city that has all these cultural riches. It's like they're going to want to pull this group together because of the great stuff that's there. And that's why I think New York and other world-class cities, Paris and London. Those are the places that I think will come out of this recovery fastest. And that's why I think it's going to happen like a rocket.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think once everybody sees the green light, I think you're 100% right. But it's going to take us a little bit longer to get to the green light. But once we get to the green light, I think if somebody else got out, like the B and C markets got out of the block a little bit sooner, and they have they have 50 yards ahead of us, they're going to have a 50-yard head start. But once we get the gun, we're going to be ahead of them.
Yeah, and as you guys both know really well, the meeting and convention business is the longest of long lead. So the NYC and Company, that meeting and convention team is out there, and they're booking these big events in 2023, 2022, 2025. That's and it's important for us to remember that it's always been 3, 4, 5 years out for some of these.
Are you seeing a slowdown? Are you seeing people hesitate and say, "Hey, I'm not ready to book for 2024 yet"?
Well, actually, we're not seeing that. We're seeing that that market feels very robust down the road. We're of course we're seeing if somebody said, "Well, what about in the summer of this year?" You're seeing like, "Well, I don't think so." For some of that big group, but no, I think the bookings are I think the bookings are going to be there.
So when that person came out a couple of months ago, or maybe it's more than a couple of months ago now, he owns a comedy club. I think he's a part-time actor, and he said New York is done. And then Seinfeld came out and said, "Hold my beer," right? Like I know you're in the hold my beer too, like I am. It's like, are you out of your mind? What did you think when he said that?
When the person said New York is done, I thought that it's the same thing I say now. I think it was ridiculous, and that is easy to say for the people who ran away, right? I know I'm here upstate today, looking like one of those people. I'm not, but New York has gone through tough times, lots of times before. We're used to,
right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like we're used to this. We've always been resilient, and so it's all these words, resilience, and we hear them over and over again. But the truth is, we've come through a lot of stuff. Then after 9/11, which I remember as well as it were yesterday, the speed that New York came out of it was miraculous. And there were a lot of programs pulled together, but ultimately it was because people, as we were saying before, people wanted to be here. And I think people still want to be here. So that resilience isn't just words that are made up. It's so I think there's nothing more ridiculous than New York is dead.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you, and I had a lot of curse words as well. And when you strip away, listen, New York's resilient. We commute on trains in 100-degree weather with no air conditioning. Okay, so we're tough. But
people that don't know New York, the smell that goes along with that.
I didn't want to say that. But the smells in New York. So one of the things, you strip away the business, right? Just strip away business for a second, and just look at New York from a geographic standpoint. You look at New York from all of its boroughs. You look at Coney Island. You look at Rockaway. You look like New York itself, without anything else, is just an incredible place. We've all traveled around. I've been to 50 countries. To this day, when I stand in Times Square, right before the pandemic, I used to talk about it all the time. My office was in Times Square, and I still stand in Times Square like you do at Saudi's, and you still feel like it's the first day you ever stood in Times Square.
Absolutely. And for people who have been to New York a lot, when you talk about the boroughs, the riches in the boroughs it's incredible. It's only starting to be explored by people who come to New York a lot. And there's so much going on, whether it's the Queens Museum or the Noguchi Museum or Brooklyn itself is every neighborhood has something to offer, especially when you think about all the food that's there. And sometimes I feel like I've eaten my way through all 5 boroughs and looking for a 6th. But
they opened up the ferry to Rockaway, and they had 7 million visitors to Rockaway last summer. 7 million. Most B, even A cities don't get 7 million visitors. Rockaway, which is this big, had 7 million visitors. And the Rockaway Hotel, which is a 4-star hotel, which is gorgeous, one of my favorite new hotels in the country, is in Rockaway. So there's so much to New York besides Times Square, besides Wall Street, besides, Harlem. There's so many great places. And so, I'm going to say that New York is like, and not that I'm a big Tom Brady fan, but New York's like Tom Brady. All right, you can't kill us.
Well, I think not going to talk about Tom Brady right now.
Sorry, I'm not a Tom Brady fan, but come on, he's going to the Super Bowl again. Anyway,
it's true. Yes, but I'm a Mahomes fan. If
so am I. I went to college in Kansas City. I was in the
so there you go. I do think, when you remember that we've added in 10 years prior to COVID, New York added 40,000 hotel rooms. Right. We added more hotel rooms than the city of San Francisco even has.
Right.
Like it's so mind boggling.
And we held them and we filled them up.
They didn't get right. And so now, of course, it's contracted because of where we're at.
Charlie, we talked about that yesterday. About a third of hotels are either temporarily or permanently closed right now.
Right. Yeah. So obviously that's a big deal. And the thing that is going to happen is that those hotels will have to start to reopen as the business shows up. It's, these are chickens and eggs. And this is, it's a whole carton of eggs here that we're working with. So I think that when the hotels open, that in itself stimulates business, because as the hotels open, of course, the rate it's going to be incredible value for a while, and all that stuff is going to happen. So there's so much going on, and there's a reason why we added 40,000 hotel rooms in that last 10 years, right. and I think there's a reason why they'll come back.
And we talked about, like as Glenn said yesterday, that when the article is like, oh my God, we're down to 87,000 rooms. It's like, well, 8 years ago, we had 70,000 rooms. So we're still 17,000 rooms ahead of where we were.
Yeah. And to that point, numbers tell you a lot, and you can talk about them in a lot of different directions. So we at NYC and Company published information a while back that said, well, it's going to be 4 years until we get back to 2019, right? That was a lot of news came out of that. New City predicts 4 years, maybe not until 2024, 2025, when the city recovers. And my theater colleagues, first of all, they weren't happy to hear that, obviously. And they said, well, that's terrible. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. Let's talk about 2022. So that's 1 year from now. 2022 may look like 2016, just in terms of the math. And I said, 2016 in the theater was a really banner, crazy, wonderful year. So I'll take 2016 because it was astonishing. We forget that we just broke a record and then broke another record and broke another record and broke another record. So yeah, it'll take us a while to get to the peak, but it's not going to take us a while to be a great business. And
we had that conversation yesterday, and I literally parroted exactly what you said. And it's like when somebody looks at a stock, it's like it went down $50. I said, yeah, but the last 3 years it went up 2,000. So,
right.
Let's look at it in perspective.
And one of the things I say on the show is like, don't think about what the numbers were last year. Think about they were 5 years ago, and that'll put you in the right kind of up.
But to that point, our guest yesterday made a very good point. Expenses are up though since 2016, and you know better than anyone in New York City, whether it be taxes, whether it be payroll. So as a business person, you have to make sure those efficiencies that when you open, that you take advantage of the efficiencies that are there just by happenstance, and then also build them in, because that's what business people do. That's what entrepreneurs do. We give us the people, fill it up, and we'll figure out the P&L.
Right. And I think there's no question that from a business perspective, we are permanently changed, right? We've learned things that we didn't know were even learnable, prior to this. It's this crisis has advanced our thinking, and a lot of this is costs. And I'll give you just one example in the theater business is our call center for customer care center at Telecharge. We had a lot of people that were manning the phones. We thought they had to be always consolidated into our building. During COVID, we were able to disperse those calls and people could take them from their homes. We never thought that was possible. We knew that it could happen. We never thought it was really our business. We thought we were too conservative or maybe not as fast as moving as we could be. We didn't do it. Now it's built into our thinking in every way. How do we make everybody not just more efficient, but also happier in their work? So I think it's that kind of thinking is happening in every business across America, including leisure and hospitality.
That's absolutely right. Charlie, I think I'm looking back 10, 15 years ago, I believe JetBlue pioneered doing that initially, where they would have all of their reservation agents work from home. And you didn't have to work a traditional 8-hour shift. If you had an hour between this and that and dealing with childcare, you could pop on and take calls and book flights there. So it's a very smart way of doing things. But what I want to know, Charlie, is say tomorrow, and I know it won't be tomorrow, but say tomorrow, you're ready to bring Chicago back. What is that process like? You've got people scattered all over. Contracts may or may not be existing. What is it going to be like to actually bring back these shows when you are, of course, ready to bring back?
Yeah. The first thing that has to happen is that we have to understand what the health protocols are to do that. And we talked about HVAC improvements and things like that. There are things that all the buildings will do. So the long lead time things are making sure that everybody can come back safely. There's a complex union negotiation and conversation that has to happen about what that looks like for the 97,000 workers that work associated with Broadway. Yeah, because they're all over the place. It's not, we think of the actors and the ushers and things like that. But you also have to remember that there are costume people who do bead work in Brooklyn and Queens and in the South Bronx and all over the place.
And sets to build.
And those costumes can't sit there. They're actually living, breathing, expensive things. They have to be reworked. Pieces in the sets can't sit in the theater if it's 90 degrees like it was last summer or 12 degrees like it was last week. So all those things need to be refreshed and people need to get into the buildings and they need to start doing the work. And then we have to gather actors from all over the country and get them back to work here in the city. And so that takes some time. You can't snap your finger and say, everybody show up tomorrow. So that's why it's a long process and it's an arduous process. And that's why, as I said before, we're starting to get on that now and feel that energy of those first those first footsteps about how we pull it together.
We got a question here. Are there negotiations with unions about maybe requiring COVID vaccines and that sort of thing?
That is a conversation that is up for everybody right now about what are the requirements. And this is a national conversation, not just in the theater, but in sort of every business. Are businesses allowed to require people to be vaccinated? So is this a government mandate that would do such a thing? These are questions that have to be answered. I don't know, but is it a conversation? You bet it is, but I don't know the answer.
Right. So the good news is Broadway will be back. We're thinking about it. We're working on it. We have high hopes for New York. I agree with those high hopes. I have a couple of questions. Glenn, do you have anything before I ask my next question?
No, I've got something to say after your questions. I'll be good with that.
What do you say to that performer that just graduated theater, or that my daughter, who is more interested in the business of theater and not being in front of the camera, but basically do what you do. And the business of thinking about theater and just being around theater people. What do you tell that person? What do you tell those kids? And, you know, a lot of those people go to the hotels when they don't have a gig, or they go to the restaurants when they don't have a gig. They have to go home to mommy and daddy because both of their careers have been closed.
Yeah.
So what do you tell them?
This is a very devastating time, and it's no more devastating than the people who work in this sector of the gig economy, performers, and who get paid by the performance, right? One way or another. So this has been a tough road for everybody, and everybody who works in the theater business. What I say to them is, this business it will come back. It is coming back. Jobs are not just in New York City, and especially in the theater. As I said before, Broadway across America is just as large as Broadway right here in New York. So if you're a young person, you actually need to get your chops. You don't have to do that right here in New York City. You could, and I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't, but I think it's that you have to take a wide view of the skills that you're learning. And if you're someone who is interested in the business side, then I think of marketers. We need marketers for Broadway, and we need marketers for New York. But the way you build some of those skills might be to learn how to sell Doritos, right? So I say, don't be proud. Take the work, get the skills, grab the experience, and there will be a place for you on Broadway, because Broadway itself, the idea of Broadway that's a growth market. It's an ideas business, and ideas are growing.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the kids I've been around, because my daughter's been in theater, community theater forever, is none of them want to be rich and famous. They just want to be on Broadway. They just want to be in theater. They want to be around theater people. They want to hang out with theater people. They want to have drinks with theater people. Like, theater people are different than like TV people or movie people. They just want to be around other theater people. Rich and famous is nice, but that's not their intention. Their intention is, like you said, hanging out in Saudis and having a drink and talking to other theater people.
We talk about Broadway as being a community, and it's another one of those things. We talk about it so much, it's like, yeah, we talk about it. But the truth is, it is like a community, and it's like a community because we are compressed like this diamond into the middle of Times Square. And so the TV business is all over the place. Even in the West End in London, the theaters are spread out, but in New York, we're all right on top of each other. And it's the thing that made us first to have issues during COVID. And it's the thing that also makes us the magic of who we are, is that we actually are right on top of each other. And most of the time, we like it. It's the expression of community is the thing that makes New York. We like this thing. So for some crazy reason, it's what gives us our energy.
I tell you, it's, as you're talking, it's like the feeling and the emotion. I didn't realize how much emotion I had for Broadway and for walking down those streets and seeing these kids, you know, from Iowa come and go to the stage door and have these dreams and have these successful Broadway actors who've been acting for 20, 30 years on Broadway, and nobody knows their name unless you know their name, make a really nice living doing it their way, because they don't want you to know who they are. They just want to perform. And that's what I love about Broadway.
Right. And when it comes back, I know for me, I will be a puddle of tears on the first time that I'm coming back to see a show.
Yeah, I cry over Doritos, so I'll cry over that.
Things that I found really inspiring from last fall, not specifically live theater, but live music. That's what I love. That's what I've been starved for so long. You know, it's no secret to people watching this. I love the band Fish out there, and the lead singer, Trey Anastasio, partnered with MSG because the band's played there, 40 something times. They did a stand at the Beacon, the Trey Anastasio band, and they had a different group of people every week. So they did live performance from the Beacon, no audience, but everybody got COVID tested. They all interacted as a community. So they would be like one solid unit. And they were able to do a charitable fundraiser, raising money for a brand new drug treatment center in Vermont. to help people by doing live music every single week. I know that for folks that like that sort of thing, it was really a great thing that uplifted people. I think it'd be really cool for Broadway before they came back to try to do something. It kind of reminds me of like the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade. If you could start to put people together in a group and have them do some of their performances and get people excited about it. And I think that there's a way to do that safely as you're trying to bring back Broadway.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And the Broadway community has done a tremendous amount of charitable work in the way that you're describing. And we converted one of our theaters to a studio to do precisely that sort of thing. We had Jagged Little Pill is a show of ours on 44th Street. They pulled together a really wonderful performance that we did in one of our in one of our studios. That was a terrific event. Was a great show. Generate a lot of money for charity, and it's going to be a great show when it comes back. So that's the sort of thing that we need to do.
And speaking of Alanis Morissette, she just recently rewrote the lyrics to Isn't It Ironic to talk about life today in 2021. So go check that out on social media.
Well, she's a brilliant author.
I got a great question for you. I don't know. You'll be the judge if it's a great question. But before you got involved in this particular business, were there particular shows or particular Broadway stars that really connected with you on a personal level growing up? I'm a big fan of all of the super old school Rodgers and Hammerstein type musicals, for example.
Yeah. As am I. People always say, well, what show do you remember? What's the one that sort of gave you the bug? And the truth is, I say that it was Fiddler on the Roof, but I actually have no idea. I think that's like all Jews say it's Fiddler on the Roof when they were 6 years old or 10 years old. Was the show.
My wife's Italian. My wife's Italian, and my wife says Fiddler on the Roof.
And Fiddler on the Roof was and continues to play around the country. So it's a great show. But when I think about the shows before, when I was in the sightseeing business, a show that really meant a tremendous amount to me was Angels in America. And that it was so moving and was so big, and it hit you in the gut so much and was so important that that's always the show that I go to when people say, what really made it snap for you was that show. And I continued. I watch it on TV. You can still see it on HBO. It's wonderful if you haven't.
Yeah, Les Mis did it for me. I didn't go to Broadway when I was a kid, but when I saw Les Mis, it took me 20 minutes to get out of my seat.
Yeah, Guys and Dolls, that's another one.
So before we let you go, and give you
tell everybody, I was in Guys and Dolls at Jewish summer camp when I was 12 years old. I just wanted to share.
It was probably right after Fiddler on the Roof.
Hey, I'm no Topol, but I tried my best. Anthony?
So Charlie, before we let you go, now that you're a Broadway, you've been on Broadway for a long time, what's one thing that you learned, whether it be an actor that was on Broadway that nobody knew, that's a famous actor, whether it be something in the Broadway theater that happened, or just a little, treasure you found in the theater? Is there any secret or any surprise that you found along the way that we would be interested in?
Look, we've covered a lot. I think the secret or the surprise is that when if you're ever fortunate enough to go into a Broadway house, not when the performance is actually playing, but just to feel that feeling, there's nothing more exciting than to see actors, and when a show is getting pulled together and the audience is where the audience normally sits are work tables. Everywhere is work tables, and you have the sound guys and you have the lighting guys and you have all the other designers, and they're working at this fever pitch in a way that you say, oh my God, there's no way that they're going to get this together in order to open, to have the first preview in 3 days. It's impossible.
Anthony, sounds like a hotel opening.
It's like a hotel opening. And then magically, it just happens. It's just magic that it comes together. And so when you come into the show, if you just picture in your head 100 people actually working with 200 computers on these in the audience is just a really good way to visualize the effort and the amount of people behind the stage and behind the scenes that go into it. I think that's the magic moment.
I tell you, the purity of it is like nothing else. Produced TV shows, produced a movie. My goal is one day to produce some kind of theater. It is. And seeing, community theater for as long as I've been going since my kids are born, there's nothing like it. It's so pure, and all they want, the people involved in that theater, all they want is applause. That's all they want. And a lot of these people, before they make it to Broadway, even on Broadway, aren't making a lot of money. It's just they die for that, and there's a purity of it. So I've never been in a Broadway theater when that was happening. But when it all happens, Charlie, invite me in.
You are going to be more than welcome. And I think no matter what you do, all anybody wants is a little affirmation and applause. I'd like to get it just for making breakfast in the morning. So.
You know what Oprah say? Every single A-list celebrity, no matter who you are, where you're from, the first thing they ask her when it's over, the interview's over, is like, how they do? I do that to this day. To this day, wherever I am, whoever's interviewing me, I'm like, how they do?
It's the first thing I'm going to do after this interview is over. I'm going to call you up and say, how was it?
Yeah, I never asked that question because I'm afraid I'll get an answer. Charlie, how can we find you? How can we learn more about everything that you're up to?
I think just go to shubertorg.com. You'll see what we have going on, or go to NYC Go. I think that's a great place to see what's happening in the city. NYCgo.com. You will see a treasure trove of riches as the city opens up, literally like a flower.
Yeah. And say hello to my dear friend for a very long time, 30-year friend, Maria Wilcox, who I worked with at the Plaza Hotel.
I certainly will. I'll say hi to all of your friends at NYC and Company and in the theater.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I don't think Glenn's ever seen me more excited about having somebody on. I've been talking about for a few days.
He has been. I can vouch for it. I do not think he's ever been more excited about it.
Because to me, we haven't had the right person. Like, we're very fortunate. We have guests up until I think we're booked till February or past February into March. Yeah, we have some amazing guests, but there are very few people that can really talk about what's happening from a tourism standpoint and also the inner workings of Broadway. So when we got to know each other and became friends, I was like, oh my God, this is like, everybody's dying to know what you know. So thank you for coming on. We'll definitely have you back as things get a little bit closer. And now you and I are best friends. So I
terrific. Well, thank you. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. And congratulations to him. He just had a new grandson 2 days ago. So awesome on that.
What's his name?
Thank you. His name is Arlo.
Oh wow, beautiful! Where'd that come from?
It come from Arlo Guthrie. Where else would it come from?
The only Arlo I've ever known. So, all right, thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So David, So Dave is saying, No Vacancy Live, the musical. I think we should put that together. Debuting in spring of 2022. How do you think that would go? Andy?
I think it's going to close in spring of 2021.
Open show to close before.
Which I'm sure, if Charlie's still there, Charlie, I'm sure you've seen that before. It closes before it opens.
Stuff from Ecotech.
Well, that was pretty good, buddy. All right, my friend, close us out. That was great. I love that guy.
Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate supporting us each and every week here on the No Vacancy podcast. And Kayla, amazing. Thank you so much. Get her pineapples. You're going to get a percent of anything you buy goes to help hospitality workers through the charity that Anthony put together. Kayla does a great job handcrafting these. Go check her out and do that. Dave, I know you're already on it. There you go. Bingham Bathhouse, go do that. Thanks for being a big supporter of our show and helping our community out there. Thanks, guys. Now, listen, I am talking to you out there, Gordon. You said you came in late today. You said you didn't have a chance to catch the beginning of the show. Well, the good news is You can catch all of the shows. If you want to watch them on video, watch them whatever channel you're watching them on now. They're there in perpetuity. But I'd highly encourage you to go out and download the audio feed at Checking In with Anthony and Glenn, at No Vacancy with Glenn Hausman feeds. Those are the places to take our show on the go with you when you only have your ears and you can't watch with your eyes. Thanks so much for being here, Anthony. You know, the light is growing brighter now. I can't wait till the lights of Broadway come back on. And I know we've got one life, so blaze on. And
Be kind to yourself.
see you all next week. Or at 4 o'clock if you're going to join the HSMAI Hawaii thing. If you want to know how to get